I'm here for these types of conversations because I am a big believer of I don't want to complain into the ethosphere. Like we got to have some resolutions. And I think a really good way to get to resolutions is by having conversations. So I'm super, super excited
That's right.
tonight to be joined by some amazing people. Now I have a notebook. There's too many things to remember, so I will be referring to it. So if you see me looking down, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm just looking at my mini notes. But I really wanted to introduce the guests that we have on today. I think this is like my first YouTube live that I've ever done. I've done TV, I've done Instagram lives, in my first YouTube live. So we're going to get through this together, but I'm really excited to be talking to two CEOs who are running Black businesses. And so we want to really dive into this. I am talking to the CEO of Onyx Impact, Isosa Osa. So happy to have you here. And we're also joined by Larry Lee, who is the CEO of the Sacramento Observer. So excited to have you guys here. And so if you wouldn't mind telling people just a little bit about yourself and Onyx Impact.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to be here with, Larry Lee, the legend, right? And having this wonderful conversation. Onyx Impact is a nonpartisan nonprofit research and education and digital hub, focused on empowering Black communities, right? That's why we have been so focused and invested in Black media since day one, right? It's how we give our stories power. It's how we give our communities power, and it's how we ensure that the truth about our history and our future is told accurately.
Amen. Amen. So I'm excited to talk more about that, and we will get more into Onyx Impact. But before we do, you did mention a legend. We are talking to Larry Lee. For the people who don't know Larry, because I mean, even if they don't know you, they've known your impact. Can you just give us a little brief overview of yourself and the Sacramento Observer?
Don't be brief.
Thank you, Nina. I know I'm gonna be brief. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, so it's so good to be in community with you too. I'm Larry Lee, president and publisher of the Observer Media Group. The Observer is the legacy publication that has been serving Northern California, particularly Sacramento, since 1962. I'm what you call a second generation publisher. So my dad was one of the founders of the paper. The paper has been named the nation's best Black newspaper 8 times, 2 out of the last 3 years. So I'll claim some of that.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Larry.
Did you?
How many? No. My mic didn't go off. I was just wondering. I think I missed. How many times has it been named?
Eight total in 2 out of the last 3 years. So
that's amazing.
We are very fortunate. I have a great team. There's no doubt that I absolutely love what I do. I love serving Black communities through the use of news and information. And the Observer we're expanding. So we just 1 week ago today, launched our Stockton Observer.
Amen.
As well. So we're one of the few newsrooms right now that's expanding as well too. So we're excited.
So what's the goal here, Larry? Are we going to have like the Atlanta Observer, the New York Observer?
Look, those communities have wonderful Black legacy publications. So you're not going to hear me say nothing about those. So, but if there's a community that might need a Black newsroom like ours, maybe you might see us. We might pull up.
Listen, I love that. And I love that, like, you're listening, right? You're serving and you're respecting communities that have that. But something that I learned actually from the Observer was that when we were looking at the article about Black media, that there are 200 Black publications across the United States, which I didn't know what the number was. Sure. I grew up in Sacramento and have been very familiar with the Observer. And I guess it didn't even occur to me that, like, this is a lot of cities are doing this. And, I know they do it here in Los Angeles, but I do love the fact that there are 200. I had no idea. And then my second thought was, how do I support them?
Sure.
So this is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Black press, I always say the Black press was the first Black business because I'm sure somebody needed their haircut. But I say it's the first Black industry. In our community, because it's been around. We just celebrated 199 years of the founding of the first Black newspaper last week, and so it is. You think about it, that's 40 years before the end of slavery, African Americans weren't even allowed to read, but there was a
Wow.
need for a Black newspaper, right?
And there's always that need, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I think there is such a huge consumption in the Black community for information. And I think one of the challenges that we're having right now is that first, there's so much information, accurate information, and then also what type of information, right? Because we know the people that are struggling aren't entertainment sites. Like we know that there's a huge appetite for gossip and for, who's getting a divorce and who's this love triangle about. And, I kind of want to come out the gate and ask you guys about this question, because sometimes when we are talking about political news, about legislation, we don't get as many views. And I really want to bridge that gap, because as someone who works in entertainment, but also has association for real hard news, I always, I find it fascinating that there are certain things some audiences care about and don't. Larry, how do we fuse these worlds so that we can get the same type of visibility people want to give, a cheating scandal with
Sure.
voting,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah,
think
it's
we want
tough.
that same visceral for
Yeah.
things that can actually help us.
Absolutely. Well, we need good partners like, Onyx Impact and Nina. And like we need people like that to help amplify, these stories that are, we always say every story starts local, right?
Sure.
George Floyd started local.
Mm.
Every news story really starts local, and so oftentimes they're not going to have the foot traffic, the legs that some of these other stories have, but they're extremely important. They're really important to those communities, obviously, and so it's an ongoing challenge, I think, for many newsrooms in and of itself. You always say good news travels fast, but bad news travels
Woo.
way faster.
I
It
always
travels.
think about growing up in like the 90s and in comparing stories now with my friends who were Black in New York, and they would hear the same rumors that I would hear all the way
Mhm.
in California without social media. So
Right.
that's how much we talk, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so if we're talking about Black media and how to support, we know that Onyx Impact has made that commitment to do that, and to really, it's really helped bridge the divide. It's one of the reasons I'm able to work with Larry and the Observer, is because of you and Onyx Impact really bridging this gap between journalists, creators, and these traditional Black news organizations that have been around for many decades. Why is that important for you and Onyx Impact to really get involved in a space where we're seeing dollars being taken away, but yet you guys are making a commitment to donate to Black media institutions?
You know, we are making a commitment to invest in Black institutions because we believe in democracy, we believe in truth telling, we believe in accountability, and we believe in pushing this country towards ever closer towards its original promise, right? And the idea that we could, start an organization that is dedicated to fighting propaganda, to protecting Black communities. The idea that we could do that without investing in the Black press is kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
Like it was such a fundamental necessity for us to even come close to accomplishing our mission. I think, one of the things we love about some of the work that we do, like you talked about the Information Integrity Lab, where we connect creators to Black news orgs and help grow the reach and audience, because the more people following Black news, the better. Why not, right?
Yeah.
Is that it opens up this world of Black press to so many more people,
Yeah.
right? Who may not know that what they're looking for, the information they're looking for, the coverage of their community they're looking for exists,
Yeah.
is being done by experts, right? And has been this has been going on since before slavery ended.
Wow.
Right? Like this is, and when you tell those stories, right, not just the stories of what is happening in communities, but the stories of how Black press was fundamental to building any level of Black power, right?
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're not just when you're following Black news and you're subscribing to Black news. This is not a New York Times subscription or whatever. This is a subscription for your people. Like every time you get an email, it's like, oh, this is my people talking about my news. This is and that's why, if folks want to find out what Black papers are in their area, in their state, if you go to Onyx Impact, you click on Aisha, one of our AI, our AI tool, and you just type in the name of your state.
Oh, I love that.
It will bring up every local Black news.
I'm sorry, your AI bot her name is Aisha. I just want to make sure that I did.
Larry, I'm not sure you understand. Because it's because like AI, and then you get it, Aisha.
Aisha, no, I got it.
No, I'm just triple checking. I'm just triple checking because it's AI, but then it's Aisha. Yeah, so
and that's actually great that you pointed that out, because I think when I say, okay, there's 200 organizations, the first question is going to be what states, what cities is it serving? I actually was shocked that it was so high. I didn't realize it was that many, and so I'm really excited to hear that. But not only are they available, but they can go to Onyx Impact and check out where to find.
Type in your state, it's going to come up, and then it's going to give you the links to follow, the links to subscribe. You just got to click them, and your feed will improve overnight. I guarantee.
I always tell people there are so many people who want to be involved in community and don't always know where to start. And I always say, start with like local media, like that is going to tell you, just even working with Onyx Impact and learning about nonprofits through the Observer. There are several, like Color the Block, for instance. Color the Block is a nonprofit organization that takes over like old parking lots where we know all these stores are closing, and they provide food and resources to local communities. Like I would have never known about that because, these mainstream organizations, that is not, as someone who has worked in those newsrooms, that is not something that they care about. That is not something that they think are going to get clicks and views. But this would generally help so many members of the community put food in their fridge. And so I think people think their only asset to local news is like their local TV station. But there are so many of these organizations like, the Observer, that are really not only servicing communities, but telling you where to go, like pretty much mapping it out for you, right?
And I'll let Larry speak to this, but I would just say it is unlikely that your local news is getting you anywhere near the type of coverage that your local Black press is going to get you, right? We know that when we some absurd percentage of local news is just covering Black crime, right? In a way that is unhealthy, is not indicative of overall crime rates, right? But it feeds an algorithm, it feeds attention, it feeds ratings, right? That is not what you're going to get when you're following the Atlanta Voice or the Atlanta Tribune or the Savannah Tribune, what have you. And I even subscribe to my old hometown where I grew up, Dayton, the Dayton Weekly, right, in Ohio. And I just love getting information about what's going on back home. Yeah. Right. Like it's amazing to be, and it makes you feel so much more bought into the community.
Larry, what do you think is the biggest for you when you are working with the community? What's the biggest impact that Black media can have on the communities that it's serving?
Oh gosh, there's so many. A properly informed community impacts so many different areas, right? People perish for lack of knowledge, right? So when you start talking about whether it's health issues and disparities, or addressing health concerns, obviously education, criminal justice, all those areas are really important, and they are drumbeats of our newsroom, right? So. While another newsroom might come in here or there and hit something, it might be you know, I don't, it might be Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October or something like that. And they may do a story about Black women and breast cancer. We're probably going to have 6 other stories throughout that year that are addressing Black women and, you know, whether it's treatment opportunities, stories about, you know, uplifting each other and talking about what opportunities there are to be healthy. You know, food diets and on all types of different things. So it is, you know, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but it needs to be part of your everyday life, right? It needs to be
Amen.
part of your everyday diet
Yeah.
of consumption. We consume so much bad stuff. Like,
Yeah.
let's consume some good stuff that is good for us, that helps us, you know, with even navigating, you know, day to day. I mean, you know, we've been working on stories about, you know, traffic issues and
Mm,
conditions for, because there's so many things. We talk about food deserts, but there's also, you know, real traffic deserts where there's public transportation issues, or how, you know, how African Americans over index with, you know, automobile accidents and things like that. There's just so many things that we address,
yeah.
that really are really important.
And
And
we
we
can keep,
also, let me also say this part
yeah.
too, because I don't want to forget this part. We also really tell the Black joy story, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing that often, you know we want to do the heavy story. We want to focus on city councils and school boards and all those types of things, but we also tell the Black joy like nobody else can tell Black joy,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's a you know, a family or a story about a young person, or anything like that. It's just we tell it in a way that has cultural significance, and resonates with our community.
Which I think, you know, is I think a lot of people, what a lot of criticism that I see, especially if I'm, you know, I won't name any popular Black blogs, but we know the entertainment blogs, they get a lot of flack because people say they are, you know, overarching, it's a negative experience. And I'm seeing a really, especially within the last couple of years, I've seen a lot of people say, hey, I'm unfollowing this. I just need to know where to find it. And that's really why I think this conversation is important, because these things do exist. Black joy stories exist. How to meet your community where they are. It exists. And this is just a better way to get it out there, because I think people don't realize, like you said, Larry, this has been around for over 100 years in one capacity or another. Something that I do want to talk about though with you both is, you know, the Observer had a story last month about two Black
Mm,
newspapers and digital organizations folding.
yeah.
Um, and I was really sad to see that. And I know, like, the Free Press, they had been around for over 50 years, I believe, and
The Scanner had been around for 50 years,
the
and
Scanner,
the
pretty
Richmond Free Press had been around almost 35 years. Yeah,
yes. And
absolutely.
so I think we talked to Gene Boone, who basically said that, like, advertising was one
Hmm.
of the main reasons why they went under. Because she said that, you know, in her words, advertisers felt like Black folks was going to buy it regardless, so they didn't need to continue to meet with these Black companies. Is that your experience too, Larry? That you're finding that you're getting less and less advertisers, especially with this current administration?
I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, yeah, I mean, that is this administration is designing, itself to dismantle and destroy everything that is important to us and our
Mm,
communities. Period. They
mm,
are looking to for our destruction. Now, um, I say that advertising in and of itself is a challenge. The media ecosystem is a challenge, yes. But when you have an administration that is saying we are removing DEI, or we are penalizing companies that are doing DEI work and outreach, that is directly impacting newsrooms like ours and organizations like ours, not just our newsroom, our community based organizations, our faith organizations, our service organizations,
yeah.
all those that have, that use DEI or have DEI as a pillar in their work, is under attack. So let's just get that out the way. For the, you know, for Portland and for Richmond, you know, these are newsrooms that have been serving these communities collectively almost 100 years between the
Yeah.
two of them, right? And I knew both founders very well. You know, they have had a commitment to serving their communities for years, and now you're left without without that voice. Portland, Portland's not a chocolate city, but to not have a Black newspaper in Portland that's been serving that community for 50 years is a tremendous disservice. Richmond, Virginia, they have about 80% African American population, and they don't have an extremely credible Black newspaper in that community as well too. And the advertising, the lack of advertising, lack of support is the number one reason why those things have why we all are struggling, but those in particular had to shut down.
Isosa, did you have something to add to that?
I have just a couple of things to say on this, because we know that this broader quote unquote DEI pullback is just a disinformation campaign, right, that is being waged against this country, and many people are getting got by it, right? They're going to use these quote unquote scary terms, right, to propagate a culture war of their own making, so that and distract us from what is actually the divestment from Black news that is actually happening, right? They took away $70 million in investment to prevent the next Katrina from happening in Black neighborhoods as a result of quote unquote DEI, right? Mm-hmm. There's $30 million that's been cut federally from maternal mortality research, right? And they called it the DEI. Why? Because when they say that, people are like, oh, this is about corporate classes that suck. This can't be about, they can't be using this to talk about taking away $10 million in sickle cell research, right? And so we are watching a mass capitulation of companies that were so happy and excited to stand up for Black lives in 2020, be the very first to divest, to fire every Black journalist that they have, to bow down and kowtow to an administration that is fundamentally opposed to any sense of the free press, right? These folks, to be clear, they are so focused on keeping their seats at a table that is being picked up and taken out the room.
You better talk about it.
We are watching frogs in boiling water, right? Trying to use Black folks as a means to escape, right? And so when you look, this is not about poor management or what like this is a brutally consistent lack of investment, migration of dollars to special other types of platforms, treating Black media as some type of special project investment, right? That is a choice. We're not talking about fate. And so it's even more important in times like these, right? To not be the frog in boiling water.
Amen.
To look clear-eyed at what is happening. Read the Onyx Impacts Blackout Report about the 15,000 harms to Black communities. Sign up to subscribe to Black Press. Go look at our digital green book. But this is the time and the place and the moment to be investing in our people more so than ever before, because we are under attack like never before.
And when we come together, right, as a collective, we do see impact, right? So if we talk about the boycott with Target, right, they're seeing that. But I guess my question to both of you is, do we call out these advertisers who are pulling? Like, what is I am of the belief, I appreciate Michelle and going high. It might be over for that for me. I am a little like, can we go medium? Because I'm kind of like, are we in the call out era? Like, Larry, let me ask you, I know there are advertisers that you've probably worked with that maybe you're no longer working with.
Sure.
And I feel like with media especially, it's very legacy built. And a lot of these systems in media for TV, for journalism have been in place for many years. Now with digital media, it does make us have to kind of shift things and do things a little bit different. And I'll take a little note from our Gen Z friends, they tell all the business. They put everything out there. And
They
and
do.
and sometimes putting things on blast work. Do we start to call out these advertisers who are pulling money from Black businesses, from Black journalists? People are losing their jobs and their livelihoods. And also, it's stopping information, right? Because, as the Sosa said, there was so much information that she just spouted off that a lot of people don't even know. So, what do we do now when we find that these advertisers, we knew in 2020, right? We knew that they were being performative, a lot of them.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, now what?
Yeah, I think it's both. So I think it is yes, call them out. And I think it's also support those that are supporting us,
Mhm.
right? There's the old campaign, right? Only shop where you can work, right? There's that sort of, and that's an old Black press campaign that we had years ago. It's the same type thing that we should be doing, right? So yes, I'm all for, if there's a company that is not doing what they should be doing, or we feel like they should be doing, definitely call them out. Absolutely. But it's also the other part of it is like, let's make sure we're putting money behind those that are supporting our community for sure. We have a tendency, we give away our wealth way too freely, way too easily and casually. So finding a way to make sure to be more intentional about how we spend our money is really important as well too.
And I think Jean Boone, who said in the article with the Observer, she said, and she wasn't 100% wrong, right? She said advertisers are finding that they don't have to do this because people are going to support them. And we've seen that with the boycott, right? You've seen people put on social media, I'm gonna go where I want to go.
Exactly.
And I think you're so right. We spend so much, we consume so much. The Black community is a gold mine to anybody. But how do we, to your point, and I'd love to hear from both
Come
of
on,
you.
Esosa. Esosa chopper. Come on, Esosa. Come on.
How do we
tell us how to
harness
use
this in a
build the
way?
money, Esosa. Come on.
How do we harness this gold that we have? Because so many people want to give it away so freely.
Let me tell you. Look. I truly believe that regardless of whatever the next election, I am a proponent of bringing back shame. Like, full stop. Like, let's bring it back to our politics. Let's bring it back to our social media. We don't need to know all the stuff that people are out here telling us about their lives on social. We need to bring it back. Like, we are letting the rich and shameless, right, dictate our lives to a degree that is embarrassing, right? We need, like, I think Michelle Obama would agree on the need to bring back, maybe we'll call it holding people accountable.
Yes.
It's probably a better
Holding
way.
their hands as we tell them they messed up.
Exactly. But bringing back shame and making sure that we are not just calling out those that are harming us where we can't, where we can't buy, right? We need to also, this is why Black press is important. If you heard the stories of what it took back in the day to keep people from crossing that line, to keep people from crossing the picket line, to keep people from taking the bus when it was so hard, when it was harming communities, right? To not be able to get to work, like the stories about what it took to keep that level of protest and solidarity continuing is so intense. It could be made into 15 different movies. Right? We probably wouldn't even agree with half the stuff that had to go down to keep that going. But it is necessary for again, folks to recognize that we're under attack, and we're not under attack from other Black folks, y'all.
Yeah. And I think, it has to be, holding these organizations accountable. And again, to Larry's point, I want to know where to spend my dollars. So if there's a company that is investing in Black media and Black communities, and I want to know who's doing it, so that that's where I can put my information, my eyes, my clicks, all of that. Because I think a lot of times, and what I've noticed in posting is you'll say, we're doing this live at 5 p.m. on YouTube, and somebody say, well, what time? I find that we got to make sure people are reading and really digesting information. And I want to talk about that just to touch on it really quickly. And I know, Larry, you deal with this because you're printing these stories and then the people are saying it doesn't exist. But how do we get, because misinformation is rampant, right? You can go on any Facebook page. My auntie is sending me articles from an AI bot on Facebook and telling me what's going on in my city. And I'm like, this is just misinformation in this fight where we're dealing with it from all sides, Larry, from advertisers to the political climate to everything in between. How do we fight this misinformation, especially in the age of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real thing is, again, it comes back to, local news and local organizations, because there's something to be said. Okay. Now, I know I'm in Sacramento. It's not a big Black market. I know that. We got about 160,000 African Americans in the marketplace. But
you there, Larry, you there, and no, you matter.
Here's where I'm going is that Black people in Sacramento know me. Like, they know they can.
I know, that's right.
Like, I know how to get a hold of Larry at the Observer. Like, they know that what I stand on or what my team stands for, the reporting that we do, they know that they can touch us, they can feel us. Even if something is wrong or something is questionable, they can talk to us, or find out why they think it might be wrong when it's right. And that sort of touch point is irreplaceable. So I mentioned earlier, we're expanding into Stockton. We spent 6 months listening to the community in Stockton. There hasn't been any reporting yet. We just launched just the other day. We're launching with a 4-part series that I'm doing about what we revealed from the listening sessions. But we listened to the community for 6 months. One of the participants, she said, I've been in Stockton my entire life. No news organization has ever sat with me for 3 hours. Like, you sat with me for 3 hours and to figure out what are some of the pain points, what are some of the issues. Like, no one's ever done that.
Feel seen.
Because they feel seen, they feel heard, absolutely. But it's also the connectivity and the real of a real person. So to your point about how do you fight the misinformation, it's finding those places and spaces that are actual and true, and trying to weed. Look, I'm terrible. I'm not on social. Like, Larry's personal life is not on social. I'm on LinkedIn. That's about it. But I have to protect my peace. Even me, I don't want to sit up here and be getting all this information from all these different sources, and have to filter through them. And I shudder for somebody who struggles to do that as well.
I'm the opposite. I have too much information at this point, but and I
but
think,
you're all the places, Nina. You have to be all the places. That's fine.
But I think people need at least a place that they can trust, right?
Yes. So your mic's muted.
Oh, my bad. I was just saying that Larry's the most famous person you have ever met that does not have a social media platform.
Now, Larry, do you not have it, or is it private?
No, I don't. I'm not. You guys are shaming me. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I used to be.
And he's not going to talk. He's not going to talk about his
what I ate for lunch.
What is that? He's not going to talk about his NBA league that he's in. We don't need to know. No. We don't need to know.
We do need to bridge that gap. Not Larry, but I will say, observers. And I would love Esosa's input on this is we do have to meet people where they're at, right? Like, we've got to meet people where they're consuming information. So I think one of the reasons misinformation runs rampant on a Facebook or TikTok is that a lot of folks feel like you, Larry. They're like, I ain't going on there. It's too much. But we've got to find them in there, because otherwise they get taken to the other side where there is misinformation central, right? Yes.
That's why we need Anita. That's why we need you, Nina. That's why we need.
Exactly. Both of these are necessary. But to that point, one of my favorite questions that people get asked in polling, it will always be my favorite question, is asking people, where do you get your news from? Mm-hmm. Right? Because you want to see, and misinformation is the accidental, unintentional spread of untrue information. You want to see some misinformation? Ask people that question, because you don't know. You know what people don't know? Where they get their news and information
Where they get the news from. Absolutely.
People will bold-faced tell us, sir, the New York Times. Like, when was the last time breaking news came out and you were like, NewYorkTimes.com,
right?
Enter.
Mm-hmm.
People will say that, hey, like the answer is that people get their news from where they spend the most time.
Correct.
That is just fundamental, right? And so in a situation where we spend the overwhelming amount of our time on our phones, on social, on video, whatever it's whether it be a console or your phone or your laptop, like that is where people are getting their information from. And so if we're not finding ways to move into those information streams, because that's what they are, regardless of whether or not they're going to be regulated as such, if we don't find ways to get into those information streams, it is going to be very difficult for folks to access our information, because they can read a great story, which is phenomenal, but if they see the something untrue, the opposite of that story in their feed 25 times, right? This is where we get not just is the overwhelming amount of just overall information, right? We're not just dealing with a couple of untruths or whatever people call them nowadays, right? We are dealing with too much malinformation. It is an environment of propaganda that is incredibly difficult to navigate, right? Without us knowing where the trusted voices are.
Yeah.
Like, I know that the Sacramento Observer is not going to lie to me.
Yeah.
I know the Sacramento Observer is not going to put out.
Dwindling, and also the trusted Black reporters that we see are
right.
no longer in these organizations, right? We have someone like Don Lemon, where now he's an independent journalist. And so I think we're kind of in this, what I would call the Wild West type of media, where I've never seen it this way, where traditional media is on one hand, we have digital media on the other, and there's like a bit of a gray area. But the cool thing about that, it can be discouraging, but I do think the cool thing about that is we really are in a space where we can create an atmosphere that really serves our communities if this is intentional.
Let me just add to that, just because I think you hit the nail on the head, because in particular related to traditional media, most people now are not really consumers, like Esosa said, of traditional media, right? And so it can be a person that they're following on Substack, or someone that they follow on social or something like that. People are more attracted to the individual because it's somebody that they know, right? And so there's that trust factor, and that's why I was talking about people knowing me in Sacramento. There's a trust factor that you have, and that's really important. So your traditional great journalists that might not be within a news organization, those two are really important and credible voices for sure.
Listen, I want to talk to you guys about this more. We might have to do, a part 2 or in person or take this on the road. I don't know what it is. You guys have fed me today with, and this is really only touching on the beginning, but ultimately the goal is to spark the conversation, keep the conversation going, but also tell people where to find resources. My biggest thing, I mean, as a journalist, I truly hate seeing so many people, repeat stories that we know are not true, or using, an AI because it has a bold face font. People think it's an authoritative news source. I'm really big about trying to, even with my parents, I'm like, this is how you find out a story is fake. This is how you vet, because we kind of have to do the work ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. So we got to keep the conversation going, but I want to give you guys just a little bit of time before we close out to just talk about your organizations, because I know for Larry, Sacramento Observer is expanding to Stockton, but also I feel like you guys are still continuing to cover national news.
Sure.
Also, like, it's not just somebody can come to you and it's not just going to be about Sacramento, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we will say this much: we've got Sacramento like lockdown. Like we know what's happening here in Sacramento for sure, related to the African American community. Obviously, we're in the state capital, so we do a lot of state issues. Of course, California is the fifth largest economy in the world, so we're paying attention to everything. Whether it might be something small like what you think is small, like water issues, or
Yeah.
the criminal justice system. Obviously, we've got a gubernatorial election that's coming up this year, and so there's a lot of things that we're paying attention to. And as California goes, oftentimes so does the rest of the country. So we're paying attention to all that sort of stuff for sure. But I will say, the leaning in on a community like Stockton, which has been, we talk about misinformation. Stockton is what happens when a community news begins to leave a community, right? They've had some bad actors on
100%
social media, in particularly in with disinformation for sure. They've had a decline of the daily Stockton Record as well too, and so you have an apathy for a community and a disinvestment in the community for a long period of time. And so us leaning into this is as much mission driven as anything we've ever done. It is a community that when we told folks we were coming, the first thing that people were saying is, thank God.
Yeah.
We are
That's
so
right.
thankful that the Observer is coming
That's right.
to Stockton. And so we're that local thing, that storytelling is really important. I know it doesn't get a lot of clicks. I know it doesn't get a lot of shares and that sort of stuff, but it's really important to the people that it touches. And
Yeah.
so we're leaning in on that for sure as well too, as well as all the other stuff.
And we hope that appetite increases as it should. And I think, especially in the climate that we're in, even me, like I'm always been invested in community, but even more now, that's where I'm finding my joy. Because if I
Yeah.
doom scroll till 2 a.m, but I can't do. I wake up, the news is crazy. So community news is where I get my feels, where I get the
That's
good
right.
things, where I'm like, how can I do more? And doing something makes me feel better about the climate that we're in. So I want to give you, the final say so, because you're doing the work, you're investing in Black media. If I'm an everyday person, I just want to figure out how I can support Black media. What are your suggestions?
100%. I think we've got a bunch of great resources. I think your very first step, go to onyximpact.org, click on Aisha, type your state in, find the Black papers in your state, click on that follow, click on that subscribe, and get into that joy, that community immediately. Like, this is the moment. Again, we cannot be frogs in boiling water. It is time to take control of your own information ecosystem, and it is time to make sure that you are following Black news. Right. This is what I'm asking folks. It's not like right now. It's not just like, oh, are you voting? What have you? It's like, I'm sorry, how many Black newspapers do you follow? And my name is Asosa. Right. Like that is how we need to be talking about this. Right. Yeah. Get your information right. Get your family's information right. Right. And make this something that you're dedicated to, not just this year, but every year. Make it a challenge for the folks that you're talking to, for your friends and your families. Like, why are you talking to me? Why are you trying to ask me out and you're out here not following any Black news?
It's as important as a question as, do you vote? Because listen, let me tell you something. We're not going any further if the question is no. There's no such thing as apolitical in my world. So I think it's such a important conversation. And again, we know being armed with information is our superpower.
That's right.
We just have to make sure, like, y'all, I want y'all to know whose latest album is coming out, but also please know, where your polling place is.
We can do both.
We can do both. Because
We can do both. Absolutely.
I love a little tea. I love a little information, but I also want to be equipped with as much information as possible, especially in the area around me. And that's why, papers like The Observer are so incredibly important. And I'm so thankful that I had them growing up in Sacramento. It impacted me. And my dad would have, the Final Call and The Observer in our Black household. And it was like, that's what I grew up with, but it helped shape me with information to ask questions. And I think right now people are consuming and not asking any questions. And I think, you know, what you both are doing is just so impactful for our community. When people are saying, where are the leaders? They're right here.
Yeah.
So thank you both so much. I'm
Thank you,
overjoyed
Nina.
talk to
Thank you,
both
thank
of
you,
you.
thank you.
We'll continue this conversation in some capacity. It's a must. And I know there's going to be a wealth of people. People have been on my Instagram all day, excited about this conversation and wanting to know what they can do. So we'll make sure to post these clips and show people where to find you guys and how to support you throughout this year and the next and the next and the next.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.